Hello and welcome back to the Sky Mobile Transfer Show, where we debate the latest links, rumours and transfers going on in this crazy summer so far. We are talking Man United today, guys, because it has been a crazy week at Man United. Things have really kicked off, and who better to talk about it than two of the best content creators and Man United fans around. We've got Adam McKola. Welcome to the show, Adam.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Pleasure. Lyes, how are we doing, sir?
I'm good. This week I'm good. The past few weeks it was a struggle, but we're getting there.
We're back on track in terms of Lyes and his
I love how you say
happiness.
heating up. Hardly anything's happened.
we signed a player in my eyes.
A big outgoing, a big incoming.
46 days later.
It only took 8 weeks. Yeah.
But guys, stick around for our Sky Mobile switch of the week at the end of the show too. But first, let's get into the big news of the week. Marcus Rashford, McKola, has left Barcelona on loan. What are your feelings about this? Are you sad? Are you angry with the club? Are you frustrated with him? How do you reflect on the last year or so?
I think the Marcus Rashford story, I'm happy for him because he's got a move that he clearly wanted. And I know a lot of Manchester United fans have turned against Marcus Rashford, but I've still got a lot of love for him. I like him, and at his best, he was fantastic for us. You know, you look at him, I think he's 11th in the record goal scorers at Manchester United. It shows you that he was pretty good during his time at Manchester United. It's a shame how it ended. And I think the way it's ended and the way it's gone with Marcus Rashford is kind of like just the symptoms of the culture at the club. When you look at like the big wages that we put him on, that, you know, arguably you wait for his next contract to put him on those kind of wages. And then you look at the way we've handled him over the time, like Ten Hag kind of giving him that leeway to have those nights out in Belfast and still get a game at the weekend and things like that. I think it's just a result of the whole mess that is Manchester United, and an accumulation of those problems have led us to here. Now, do I think Marcus Rashford has some responsibility for that? Yes. I think he has a lot of responsibility in that. But I do think it's just a mix of bad decision making by both parties. And eventually it's led to this. And I think it's the right move for both. I hope he goes out there and smashes it. And I genuinely believe he will. We see some players go over to Spain, go over to Italy that, you know, aren't doing so well in the Premier League or have hit a little bit of a slump. And once they go to a league that is a little bit slower, I know Spain's quick still, but it's a little bit less physical. You know, it's not as physical as the Premier League. I think he will shine over there, and I think it's probably the move he wants. Like, this players shouldn't be this way, but going to Villa, he probably felt Villa were a bit beneath him,
yeah.
Which you shouldn't, because Villa are a massive club and it was a big opportunity for him. And going to Barcelona, I think that might just get him going again. And I really hope it does, because I'd hate to see him waste his talent. Yeah. And from a selfish United perspective, we need that 30 million.
Absolutely, it needs to go well. It needs to go well. You eventually need his, wages off the books, of course. Barcelona are paying for them, but you do need a fee for him eventually. I mean, Lyes, let's talk about the sort of fit at Barcelona, because he's joining a club that won a domestic treble last season, that were minutes away from reaching a Champions League final, and they've got some fantastic forwards already. How do you see him blending in there?
Hansi Flick is someone I call the attacker whisperer. I feel like this guy can get wine out of sewage water at times with attackers. And I mean, for me, I'll never forget the year that they won the Sextuple of Bayern. Serge Gnabry under him literally went from a good winger to like a 30-goal winger overnight. He was scoring in the biggest games. I look at what he's done to this Barca team. This was a side that a year ago, before he came in, people were questioning under Xavi, like, what's their future? Where does this team go going forward? And in a year's time, he turned them into the most fearsome attacking unit in Europe. Lewandowski, people were calling him finished, basically. Scored 40 goals last season. Raphinha, from overnight, a decent player to a Ballon d'Or contender. And of course, Yamal, we know about him. So I feel like any attacker with something about them under Hansi Flick, their production is bound to rise. And I look at Rashford, I agree with Adam. I still think there's a lot of talent there, man. Like, you don't lose ability. And one thing about Marcus Rashford, whether you like him or not, he has certain skills to him that I think most coaches that have an eye for attacking players will like. More than anything, his speed. This guy in transition is a monster. And I look at the way Barcelona attack. This guy kind of being on the end of those passes from Pedri, those crosses from Yamal, those layoffs from Lewandowski. I think Rashford, if he really kind of puts his head down, and the thing is with Rashford, right? This is a huge opportunity for him. Like, I don't want to say he doesn't deserve to be at Barcelona, because he does. He's a top player, and Barcelona clearly wanted to bring him in. But it does almost feel like last chance saloon for him at a club of this stature. And I think he'll understand that and really kind of lock in. For me, the biggest thing is from the pressing point of view, because Barca are a really high pressing team. Can he kind of add that side to his game? Because I do think at United, the pressing side, off the ball thing was always kind of an issue with him. But I think if he kind of knuckles down and kind of adds that to his arsenal, I don't see why Rashford can't go to Barcelona and score loads of goals.
Yeah, I mean, the fact they'll have Rashford, Dani Olmo, Ferran Torres on the bench, they've added a quality goalkeeper as well. I'd really keep an eye out for Barcelona in the Champions League next year. We talked about it at the top of the show, Adam, this 46-day wait to get Bryan Mbuemo. It's done. But my question really is less about him as a player, because I think that's been talked about endlessly. But if United struggle to get a striker in, which could be a possibility in the next month or so, do you think Cunha, Højlund or Bryan Mbuemo, or some combination of that, is enough to get Man United to a respectable league finish next year?
I'm so... You know, like after the first season with Højlund, I was like, we were really bad. He scored 16, 17 goals. You thought, there seems to be something there. And look, he's a young player and you're going to go through peaks and troughs in your early career. I understand that. But after that game in Bilbao, I just remember leaving thinking, we can't go on like this with this guy up front. He's just not doing enough. And what has even crossed my mind is, look, ideally we get a striker. But what has crossed my mind is, I wouldn't be surprised to see eventually Bruno become that probably false nine in up there, which again isn't ideal. But we've got a strange bunch of midfielders that I don't think no one really complements each other well anyway. And then you go, is Casemiro going to play? Is Ugarte going to play? Will Kobbie Mainoo eventually find his way into that? And you'd hope that would be the case. And then maybe Bruno Fernandes could become that. But I don't think we can go into this season relying on Rasmus Højlund. I also think it's partly responsibility for the club as well. Like, we've brought this kid in. We've had no experience around him. Ideally, he would have been a second choice striker. His coming had to be the main man in a struggling Manchester United team. You can only understand the pressures that he is feeling. But again, I don't think he does the basics well enough. I don't think he just seems to have fallen off a cliff. And is he going to rescue that? I can't see him scoring, somehow going, oh, there's the player that we signed next season. I don't see that coming. So I wouldn't mind seeing the back of Rasmus Højlund, to be honest. And I also think, you look at Omar Barada, I think when he was at Manchester City, they kind of had that 2-year theory, didn't they, where if you're not doing it after 2 years, we're not going to hold on anymore. And what we've done with a lot of players is, Victor Lindelof, for example, he's just left on a free. We seem to extend them or give him a chance, there's something there. But then after that 3rd year goes, that 4th year goes, you can no longer resell him. So I think United kind of need to, while they can, if there's some money knocking about in Italy for him, take it, because if we take another year with him, that money's not going to be there next year.
Yeah, I think you make a good point. I mean, look how ruthless Chelsea have been, and I really disagree with a lot of their transfer policy in the last few years. But if you haven't done it in 2 years, you're out, and they'll bring in the next player. And whether they've done that through fair means in terms of their PSR is another question. But you know, United.
It helps when Arsenal want to buy all your duds, though.
That does help. That does help. One a year.
The problem with Højlund as well too now at this point, right? You can because I hear you say with the basics right now he's struggling. When I look at Premier League footballers unable to control a football or like literally misplacing 5-yard passes, we saw in the postseason, if you want to call it that. I'm looking at some of his touches. I'm thinking this guy doesn't even look professional at that point. But the thing with me is, I know he's a professional footballer. So those are things that any player in the 4th division of England can do. When you're incapable of doing that, that just tells me your confidence is absolutely on the floor. And that's the problem with Rasmus Højlund right now. Not only is he probably not a great center forward anyways, not only is this probably too early for him anyways, now he's playing with zero confidence. So you're seeing an average Premier League striker playing at their absolute worst possible. So when you ask, do you see him kind of coming back from this? I don't. I think now it's almost too far gone. I think he, more than anybody, probably needs a new environment to kind of just reset things for himself right now.
We did that to Lukaku, didn't we? And he was a supreme striker. Like, he's an elite striker.
Lukaku's one of the best strikers of the last 10 years in the top 5 leagues. It literally looked like he couldn't kick a ball.
Yeah.
Come on, he's better than that.
For sure. And just on Bryan Mbuemo, because yes, it was really long and protracted, but if it just been announced 2 days ago and then he signed, I think the excitement level for this one would be much, much higher. Just on the season he had at Brentford. Do you see him having the personality, the ability to hit the ground running at United, unlike so many previous signings?
I don't know. I think that's the honest question.
I think it's down to the environment he joins in, isn't it? Again, we kind of spoke, I think it was before we were on camera, about Louis van Gaal's pre-season and how great it was, and then we start the season terribly, and pre-season doesn't mean everything. But if you can have a positive pre-season with the team and you start to see things click, because that's what it could take, 1 or 2 signings, and then the rest of the team go, hold on, actually these tactics work, and actually we can beat teams with these tactics, then maybe you can do it, but the problem is we need so much more than a Bryan Mbuemo that I don't think anyone's going to massively get excited about. It's good to hear that, you know, he could have easily entertain Spurs a little bit more, entertain Newcastle a little bit more, and try to hike up his wages and stuff, and he didn't. And that shows that he wants to join a club, which I think is
Yeah, you made that very evident. I mean, the reason I said I don't know is because, look, I watched Angel Di Maria come to Manchester United, and it was too big of a stage for him. That's one of the best players.
The chip was fun, though. I love the chip.
He was one of the best players. He's one of the best players I've ever seen in my life. He came to Man United. That's the only blip on his resume. Look at Di Maria's entire career.
Still going.
He's literally been successful everywhere but here. So when you ask me about Bryan Mbuemo, I think Bryan Mbuemo was a very talented player. I'm very happy we brought him. Likewise, I'm happy that he clearly wants to be here. But if you ask me, like, does he have what it takes to kind of succeed where others have failed? A lot of it really probably isn't even up to him. Like you said, it's really about, can we platform him correctly? Can we put him in the right situation? Can we surround him with the right players? There's so many like outside factors that really come down to a player succeeding or not at Man United. And that's the reason why when you look at post-Fergie, how many have been bona fide successes? You could probably count them on one hand.
But then it's all down to environment again, like we say, and kind of the manager is trying to get rid of some of these maybe negative influences, whether they're good players or not, on the team. And that's why I was kind of glad when he went, all right, Garnacho, you don't want to be here quite clearly. You're not part of this squad. You know, whoever doesn't want to be here or who isn't going to be here, you're not part of this squad. Because then eventually you're getting people that aren't pulling their weight in training. That can be, that can spread through the team. And you need a full squad that is focusing on being successful at Manchester United. And I think with the nucleus of young players we have, like everything's negative about United, innit? And look, I'm an optimist, innit? So I am going to try and pluck these silver linings out of the cloud here and there. And there are parts of it that I get quite, like Lenny Yoro is so good. Kobbie Mainoo is a huge talent.
I like Aiden Heaven.
Like Aiden Heaven looks very good. I think De Ligt can be a leader in this team. If you can get Lisandro Martinez back in, I know it's a big...
great set of centre-backs.
There's some
only
players
played 3 of them.
But there's some players there that will massively... I think Lisandro Martinez massively improved this team. The problem for us now is that midfield and what's the right balance? Who are we going to bring in? Can we bring someone in? Is the right player out there for us? And getting the best out of... I know people hate it since the Pogba thing, trying to get the best out of a player. But we've got to do it with Kobbie Mainoo.
That's how football works, by the way. I feel like people got so frustrated with that, but you look at the best teams around Europe, you have to platform your players correctly, man. I feel like these days we look at guys and it's like, oh, can you just come in and make a difference? Like this is an ultimate team, man. This isn't...
Not everyone's Bruno as well.
Yeah, but even Bruno now, I'm looking at him in this team, I'm like, there was obviously the whole kind of talk about the 100 million. Where does he fit into this? Because now we're probably playing him as a deeper midfielder. And I keep asking people, like, who is this ideal midfield partner in a deep 2 with Bruno Fernandes? Does that even exist?
Yeah.
Like, you have to be Patrick Vieira to do that. Like,
well, on the topic of which, guys,
we're
here to discuss future signings. Before we get into the midfield, because I do think that's fascinating, the big rumour this week is Nicolas Jackson. Chelsea supposedly asking for 80 to 100 million pounds, which Man United are just clearly not going to do.
No, we're asking 80 to 100 for Garnacho,
on a hypothetical level, Adam, what do you make of Nicolas Jackson as a potential option for Man United?
Right, look. This is how bad our striker situation is. I quite liked Nicolas Jackson when I first saw him at Chelsea. I thought he was a handful. I thought there was some bright spots to him. I thought he brought the ball forward quite well. His finishing leaves a lot to be desired at times, but I thought there was something there in it. But the fact that we're talking about strikers that haven't really succeeded at Chelsea,
third choice at Chelsea,
that Chelsea want to get rid of, then we're looking at, Ollie Watkins is a very good Premier League striker, but it's like, we're looking at some strikers that we wouldn't have really looked at before, and we're like, they would be a huge improvement on Højlund.
That's our level,
shows
bro.
You where we are.
That's our level.
Shows you where we are.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of people over the last few weeks say, they're acting like Nicolas Jackson would be the worst thing to ever happen in this club.
No.
And I'm not a huge fan of Nicolas Jackson. I have to be honest with you. I don't think he's an elite level striker, and I think Chelsea are moving on from him at a point where they need to. But also when I look at the last 2 years where Chelsea worked to where they needed to get to, he was an ideal stepping stone. He was like a bridge to kind of gap Chelsea from being 12th to now being back in the Champions League. Sounds familiar to where we want to get to. If you tell me in the next 2 years United will be back in the Champions League and Jackson will help, I'll be happy. I feel like some United fans dissing the Jackson signing or the hypothetical of signing him are hopelessly out of touch of reality. This is our level now. We are 15th out of Europe. So if we can get him, obviously 80 to 100 million, I don't think anyone is under any illusion that's what he's worth, right? For me, I look at him 50, 60 million pound player max, right?
Max.
If I'm getting him maybe in a return for Garnacho, who has had interest from Chelsea, I'm taking him every day of the week.
Well, another big rumour this week, which has actually kind of been rumbling all summer, to be fair, is Emi Martinez coming in to replace Andre Onana. Do you like that, Lies?
No, I don't. I like Emi Martinez, but my policy for Man United should be to stop signing anyone over 30 years old, especially for that kind of money. I mean, if you're talking about rebuilding a squad, look at any successful rebuild at any football club, and it doesn't involve signing 30-plus-year-olds for £40 million, £30 million. That's not the blueprint. So absolutely not. Look, Andre Onana has been an unmitigated disaster at United, so I definitely think we need to sign a replacement there. But the solution for me isn't to sign a 30-plus-year-old, no.
Fair enough. Okay, so we're saying maybe to Nicolas Jackson, no to Emi Martinez.
Also, has Martinez... Like, I know the World Cup's doing a lot of heavy lifting for him, but he came to Old Trafford against one of the worst United teams you've ever seen last year. Champions League football on the line, and he absolutely threw them under the bus.
He didn't have a great campaign.
I don't think he's reliable.
No.
And I think he does get in his own head sometimes as well.
Yeah, absolutely. He's very overrated against the status as best goalkeeper in the world. I think he's a very solid Premier League.
I think he's a good keeper. I think he's better than solid. But I just think, like, what are United trying to build here? If that's what we're spending 40 million on 31 here, we want Watkins, who's going to turn 30 in a few months as well too. I feel like we've done this a trillion times now.
Watkins would make more sense because of the fact that, and look, I know we're kind of talking about Højlund potentially leaving, but let's say he was to stay. We've got very young strikers, so Watkins kind of would make more sense.
It depends on the fee for me, honestly.
Yeah,
it depends on the wages he's going to be on. If we can get Watkins for a deal that makes sense, no doubt about it. But
okay, well, we've sort of been less sure about some of the names I've mentioned so far, but I want one dream signing from each of you, and it can be any position.
Can I tell you something? We're going to be unsure about everybody. You could tell us we're going to sign Lionel Messi, and we'll go, "Are you sure?" Like,
he's over 30.
Have you seen what Man United do to people?
The environment.
Like, we're going to sign Messi in a time machine.
Like Lionel Richie, man.
Like, United do things to players that I don't think and it's the environment again, and it's about getting that right environment. And for all the criticism Ineos get, and I think they deserve a lot of it, ticket prices and things like that, I think they are trying to do the right things. It's going to take a while.
Okay, well, with all that taken into account, McKola, who would be your dream signing? You can dream as much as you want, man.
Can we get a time machine?
You can get a time machine, yeah. You can do whatever you want.
This is where we're at right now.
He's going back to San Cantona from Leeds, man.
We're writing fan fiction and that. This is what's going on right now.
No, he has to be a current player. Come on.
Look, we need a midfielder or a striker. I think Osimhen was my ideal striker.
Same.
I look at the strikers on the market. You laughed at me earlier, but when I look at like the Gyökereses and Seskos and that, I genuinely believe like Darwin Núñez is probably better than all of them. And
yeah, you lost him.
I look at Gyökeres, bro, and I think
someone
he
check
ain't
his
it,
drink,
man. He's not it.
Someone check his
He
drink.
reminds me of a
just a
Vati Vegos or something like that. Like, I don't think Gyökeres is it. Like, I genuinely don't. Look, we're not going to get him anyway. We haven't got the money, Champions League football or the pool at the moment to bring him in. But
you're not feeling Sesko.
It feels very. Like, I think he's better than Højlund, but it feels like a similar.
I feel like now we're scarred by young players. Like Euro was also a young player, right? Like I feel like not everyone is Højlund. I hear the fear, right? Leading the line for Man United is a big thing. 12
goals in
but Isak had only scored what 10 for Sociedad before.
Højlund had only really started for like 6 months for Atalanta. Like Sesko's got a fairly solid record of 3 seasons behind him. I think it is. I'm taking
Sesko, man. I'm taking him.
I would as well. Like, I think when it was like Sesko or Gyökeres and Arsenal were in for Sesko, I was like, if I was Arsenal, I'd do that too. Because I feel like there's
the upside of him,
a bit more risk with Gyökeres, and I genuinely don't believe his goals translate in the Premier League. Maybe I'm just being an idiot. Maybe, I don't know. But a striker is important, but I genuinely couldn't pull a name out of the hat. I don't know. Midfield, man. We need a midfielder.
What type of midfielder do you think you need?
We need someone that can keep it simple, but also progress the ball. I think Ugarte is very good at times at like being a destroyer, but then he can't pass wind. So it's like, we're talking
about a midfielder here, by the way. Huh?
And you can exactly see, when you watch PSG, you go, that's why they didn't want this guy. And it's like, we did it with Matic. We gave Chelsea 40 mil for Matic. They went and bought Kante. We gave PSG that money. They go and buy an even better midfielder. It's like, what are we doing? I like Carlos Baleba from Brighton. He's probably going to cost.
You selling Old Trafford to get there? Or?
I would.
Probably have to.
I like him too.
Can we sell the women's team to ourselves?
Well, enough Premier League clubs are doing it.
Can Ineos sponsor us for $1 billion?
I know. It's nuts. You guys are trying to do it the right way. Okay, Carlos Baleba, I think that's pretty punchy, but I like to dream.
I
you said
agree.
Dream.
Yeah,
we said dream. Lyes, who's your dream?
Probably Carlos Baleba as well too, man. Honestly, again, I'm looking at the midfield situation. If Bruno's going to be playing in central midfield, like you're talking about progressing the ball, which is obviously a must, but I feel like you need some physicality next to him, man. I looked at the Europa League final, and I love Bruno. I think Bruno's a fantastic player, but he does have his flaws, and his flaws are clearly from a physical point of view. He's not the strongest. He's not the most. He's not going to win your defensive duels. He's not going to win his aerial. He's pretty small. I looked at how Spurs kind of dealt with him with who was it? Pape Sarr, Bentancur, and Bissouma. they ate him alive, man. The minute he got the ball, the physicality was too much for him. You need someone next to him. If Bruno's going to be your midfielder, that has a bit of size, that can obviously win his aerials, that can win his defensive duels, that can pass the ball. Again, it sounds like I'm talking about Vieira here. I mean, I think Baleba would be a dream. If I'm going to be a little more realistic, which I still don't think it's going to happen, I would like an Amadou Onana at Villa. I think we could do a lot worse than someone like that. You look at the best teams in the Prem right now. Declan Rice at Arsenal. You look at City with Rodri at their best. You look at Gravenberch. All these teams have grown men in their teams, man. I look at United. We're so lightweight in midfield.
And we are like trying to lift the physical floor of the team in certain areas, but it hasn't happened in the midfield. And it's like you say, Bruno, Kobe Mainoo, I think they're fantastic players, but you need that right type next to him. And I think Baleba's got that defensive mindset. He's obviously played centre-back before as well. He's played in midfield, but he also is fantastic on the ball, breaking the press, getting in between the lines and then releasing the ball. We don't do that enough. And I think in this system, Amorim needs that.
Can I ask you this though? Like, do you honestly think like there's anybody out there that we could realistically get that next to Bruno in a deep two could actually like work at a good level?
I think Bruno has to be in the front three, bro.
I think I think he's a tactical, not a nightmare, right? But it's a question mark.
Do you think the club? Look, I was happy you stayed in it.
I'm happy you stayed because I like Bruno.
Because I think we need players like that, especially when we're in this position. A player that's going to always pull his weight, always keep people honest. But do you think the club deep down wanted him to say yes?
I think if you're signing Cunha and Mbuemo, both of them, I don't see what's the need for that. I don't say what's the need because he's our best player. I get that, but there's clearly not a real clear spot for him in this team anymore.
That's why I think it might be like a Xerxes dropping deep or a Bruno in that. Like I feel like we could end up in this position, even if it is just temporarily until we buy a striker at the end of the window. I feel like we might, because Højlund ain't it.
Well, I've got a surprise for you guys, and it kind of fits that idea.
Is there a striker coming through the
door? No, yeah.
Mateta!
Bring in Nicolas Jackson. Unfortunately, Nicolas Jackson's not joining the Sky Mobile transfer show today. But the idea of Bruno moving further forward, if you can't sign that striker and you play either Cunha or Mbuemo as the 9, I think you need a Bruno-style replacement in midfield, because otherwise I think the lack of passes in there. And I think a player you could realistically get is James Maddison from Spurs.
Oh, no.
James Maddison, hold on, in a deep two.
In a deep two.
He's even more lightweight than Bruno. He's even more lightweight than Bruno.
What are we doing here, Dougie?
Well, you can get Javi Guerra from Valencia, but I talked about him a few weeks ago on the lowdown. And look, that is the kind of can do everything in midfield, very good forward passer. But I think there is a potential opportunity to get James Maddison on the cheap. And look, maybe you back Agate, Casemiro for one more season and sign the defensive midfielder that can go alongside him. But I think your striker situation is really troubling. I really don't know who you're going to get. So I think you've got to back the players you've already kind of got in that area. And then someone like James Maddison, I just really do think has the personality.
Where's he playing?
He's playing in the 2.
With who?
Agate.
Ugarte and James Maddison?
I honestly think you'll be a more
Is that better than Ugarte
side.
and Bruno?
No.
But then Bruno's probably more of a threat in one of those 10s.
But I would say the same thing about Maddison. No, I would say Maddison.
James Maddison.
James Maddison.
No, I like Maddison.
It's hardly ever, no. Remember when we were linked to like Grealish and all that, like 3 or 4 years ago? That was the time if you wanted James Maddison to get him just before he joined Spurs. His injury problems, he does have them.
Well,
he's going to want big wages or bigger wages.
No, I like Maddison. It's not even about quality for me, but I just don't see any role for him in this team whatsoever. I'm sorry. I think you have the same issues that I'm talking about with Bruno from a physicality point of view if Maddison's playing there. Probably even worse, to be honest.
I just don't know whether that is going to be your biggest problem next season. I think it's actually getting the ball into these more effective forwards. And you've really got to get Cunha and Mbuemo working. And there wasn't enough ball going into the players last year, and it wasn't being held up effectively enough either. I think you've got to back these forwards as the way to get you out of the mess. Because you scored, what, 40?
When was the last time he played that deep? He doesn't really play deep.
No, he doesn't. But he played a bit deep last year, but he did have Bentancur, Saar, Basuma kind of behind him. It was, look, it's out there.
Casemiro next to him.
Bro, I could have sat here for 3 days and not guessed James Maddison.
Same, honestly, that's come out of nowhere.
That has threw me.
My idea is that Agate is very good at one thing, and that is clattering into players and playing very simple passes.
You know what I think's happened? Do you remember Louis Van Gaal when Javier Hernandez missed the penalty and he went?
Yeah.
And in his head he went,
he's gone.
He's done for me. And I think he had that moment with a few players. Ugate's had that moment with Amorim. Do you remember when he fell on his arse against West Ham and didn't get up?
Mm-hmm. That was it.
I think that's why he didn't start the Europa League final. I think the manager...
You prefer a washed-up Casemiro to him, man. This isn't rocket science. Ugarte is not...
I think that was the moment where he just went, this ain't it.
Well, guys, tell us what you prefer. The very unrealistic James Maddison and much cheaper James Maddison or the very unrealistic Carlos Baleba. But midfield is going to be the area to fix in the next months. But you've also got to sign this striker.
And goalkeeper as well.
And goalkeeper, and potentially a new right wing back
maybe
as well.
But 3 months, maybe a manager as well too. Who knows, man?
There's a fair amount to do. But guys, let's move on to our Sky Mobile switch of the week. So this is our favourite transfer rumour at the moment, or completed deal that's gone on in the last week or so. Lyes, what's lighting your fires at the moment?
There's a few. We're looking around Europe right now.
Yeah, it can be anywhere.
I like Lookman to Inter. I feel like with Inter, obviously they're going through a new thing with Christian Kivu right now. And I look at Inter for the last few seasons, and they're a really good tactical team, but I always feel like they're a bit slow. They don't have enough players for me that kind of can get the ball and just break down defenses and run at players. And I look at Lookman, what he's done at Atalanta. I think that's a good example of a player who is kind of not stagnating. He was doing okay in the Prem, but then makes that move abroad and just lights it up. And I think this is the next step in his career, and I think he will add something to Inter. I think they're trying to move from a 2 more to like a 2 attacking midfielders and a striker in front of them, and I think he could be a really good addition for them.
I like it. Adam?
It's a bit United-centric, although it's probably not the one you're going to think of. Rashford to Barca.
Rashford to Barca.
I genuinely I was disappointed it's ended at United and stuff like that. And for much of the same reasons, Lyes was talking about what Hansi Flick's done with Raphinha and stuff. I just think Rashford is going to absolutely smash it over there. And if he doesn't, I'd be very, very surprised. And I'll be delighted for him if he does. So, Rashford. I also thought this move was gone. I didn't think it
felt like
could
a long
possibly
shot,
happen. I think 2 or 3 weeks ago I was talking about, is it going to be like a West Ham or something? Like, where is he going to end up?
I'm honestly a little surprised at the amount of people that are looking at how has he ended up at Barca. Do you know who Barca have signed recently? They signed Adama Traore a few years ago. They signed Martin Braithwaite a few years. He was at Middlesbrough, man. This is not like Messi, David Villa.
Christensen and all that.
I'll be real. It doesn't take. I think Rashford's a great player, but people acting like he's got this move that he never deserved. Far worse players have gone to Barcelona than Rashford in recent years.
People over the narrative.
Eric Garcia's at Barca, man.
Yeah,
come on.
The talk around Rashford as well is always just so, it goes too far.
Yeah, it's too extreme on either side.
Yeah, it's just a lot worse players have been signed, like you said, and he is a very, very good player. Yeah. And people forget as well how much environment's important. You just spoke about Ademola Lookman. When we seen him at Everton, he was at Everton, right?
Yeah, he's everywhere. Everton, Leicester, Fulham.
We'd have gone, that's not the same player, tearing it up in Italy and stuff. So I think, environment's important, and I think he's probably found the right one.
I agree. Right, the favourite transfer from me this week is actually from the selling club's perspective, but I think Napoli have absolutely nailed it with Victor Osimhen. They're getting 40 million euros right now for a player they don't need. They're getting 35 million euros next year. I think there's a 12% sell-on clause for when he inevitably goes to Saudi Arabia, probably in 2-3 years' time. And he can't go back to Italy for 2 years. I just think Napoli have absolutely nailed that. And fair play to Osimhen, people have really criticised him, but going to Galatasaray, massive, massive club, people don't really give it enough respect. They've got over 70 million fans in Turkey alone. It's a huge club, and I hope he does well out there. He's been really criticised. Look, I'd love to see him go to the Premier League. He would have been, as these guys said earlier, I think the outstanding striker that was signed this summer, but it hasn't worked out for whatever reason. His agent has got him a phenomenal deal personally, and I think Napoli have absolutely smashed it as well. And they've already signed Lorenzo Luca, who can back up Lukaku.
So you're telling me, and you're trying to sell to this audience, that in a week where Granit Xhaka is about to go to Sunderland, your favorite move of the window is Osimhen. Allow it, man. Stop.
You're a liar, doggy.
We are doing a whole lowdown tomorrow, and trust me, I will be going in on Granit Xhaka to Sunderland. I've been all over the place this episode purely on the basis of that. But guys, thank you so much for watching the Sky Mobile Transfer Show for this week. It has been a lot of fun. Remember that with all the transfers going on between clubs this summer, it's never been easier to transfer your network to Sky Mobile. All you need to do is text PAC to 65075, and Sky Mobile will do the rest. Massive thank you to our excellent contributors today, Adam McKola and Lyes Bouzidi, and we'll catch you next week for episode 3. Bye-bye.